At my grandfather's funeral, my aunt laughed and said, "I already took all the money and spent it. There's nothing left for you." Her words broke my heart, but then, the lawyer handed me a small box. When I opened it, my aunt's face went pale, and she nearly fainted. My grandfather was my hero. He wasn't rich, but he was smart. He worked hard his whole life and saved every penny. He never bragged, but he always made sure our family was okay. When he got sick, we knew his time was running out. Losing him was the hardest thing I'd ever faced. At the funeral, I wanted to grieve, but instead, I found myself in a family mess. My aunt, let's call her Linda, only showed up when she needed something. She had borrowed money from Grandpa many times, and he always helped, even though he knew she'd never pay him back. He was kind like that. After the service, we gathered in the church hall. The lawyer stood up and said he had to read the will. Linda leaned back in her chair, smirking. Then she said, "I already took the money and spent it, so there's nothing left for you." Just like that, no shame, no guilt, just a proud grin. My heart sank. Grandpa's house? Gone. His savings? Gone. He had worked his whole life to leave something for his family, but Linda had taken everything. The room fell silent. Even the lawyer looked shocked. Linda laughed. "You all can stop waiting for money, there's nothing left." I felt sick, but before I could say anything, the lawyer cleared his throat. "There's one more thing," he said. He pulled out a small wooden box and placed it in front of me. "This was left just for you." Linda's smirk faded. "What's that? A box of old junk?" she sneered. Ignoring her, I opened the box. Inside was a single key resting on soft velvet. Underneath, there was a letter in Grandpa's handwriting. With shaking hands, I unfolded it. "Trust is earned, not given. You were always the one who cared, who stayed. If you're reading this, then you are the one who deserves what I've built. This key is for the safety deposit box. Everything important is inside." Linda's face turned ghost white. What do you mean, safety deposit box?" she stammered. The lawyer smiled slightly and pulled out another paper. "The money you stole? Those were fake accounts. Your father set those up as a trick." Linda's chair screeched as she jumped up. "That's impossible. I saw the bank statements. I took." She stopped mid-sentence. The lawyer wasn't finished. "What you took was just a small amount. The real money, the real accounts, were hidden, and your father left everything to your nephew." Linda opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. Then, thud, she collapsed on the floor. For the first time that day, the room was silent. Then Linda gasped, sat up, and shrieked, "This is a lie. You forged that letter." The lawyer didn't even flinch. He pulled out another envelope with an official bank seal and slid it across the table to me. "This has all the account details and the location of the safety deposit box." My hand shook as I picked it up. It was real. Linda scrambled to her feet, panic in her eyes. And that was just the beginning. "No," Linda shouted, her voice shaking, not from sadness, but from pure rage. "No, no, that money is mine. He wouldn't do this to me." She lunged at the lawyer, her nails out like she wanted to tear the truth out of him. Her own brother, my uncle, grabbed her arms and held her back. "Enough, Linda," he said, his voice tired but firm. "You stole from him. You knew exactly what you were doing." Linda twisted in his grip, snarling like a wild animal. "It wasn't stealing. He gave me that money. He always helped me." I clenched my jaw to stop myself from yelling at her. She just didn't get it. She never had. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Your father may have helped you, but he was also smart. He saw this coming." Then he turned to me. "I suggest you go to the bank as soon as possible." Linda's head snapped toward me. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. "No, no, you're not touching that money." I met her gaze and said nothing. She must have seen something in my expression, something that told her this was over. Her whole body tensed. Then, without another word, she stormed out of the church hall, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. I should have known Linda wouldn't give up so easily. The next morning, I went to the bank with my best friend, Mark. After everything that happened, I didn't want to go alone, just in case. The bank manager greeted us and led me to a private office. He took the key and unlocked the safety deposit box. When he lifted the lid, my breath caught in my throat. Inside were stacks of legal documents, deeds, a list of investments. And at the very bottom, a thick envelope with my name on it. I carefully opened it and pulled out another letter from my grandfather. "If you're reading this, it means everything went as planned. I hope you use this wisely. This isn't just money, it's a chance to build something, a chance to be free, but be careful, because not everyone will be happy for you." I barely had time to take in those words when the bank manager cleared his throat. "There's something else," he said. He reached into a folder and pulled out a security camera photo. My stomach dropped. It was Linda, from the night before. She had come to the bank after hours, trying to access the account. She must have thought she could bribe or charm someone into giving her information. But it didn't work. The manager sighed. She was asked to leave, but she caused quite a scene. I nodded, trying to stay calm. Of course she did. Mark leaned in and whispered, "You need to change the locks on your house." He wasn't wrong. That night, I got home late, completely drained. I had spent the whole day sorting legal paperwork, making sure everything was locked down in my name. Around 2 a.m., a strange noise woke me up. At first, I thought it was just the wind. Then I heard it again, soft, careful footsteps on the porch. Someone was outside. Heart pounding, I grabbed my phone and crept toward the front door. Looking through the peephole, I saw a shadow near the lock. Then I spotted the long acrylic nails. Linda. A chill ran through me. She was trying to pick the lock. I took a deep breath and pressed call on my phone, the police. Linda must have heard me move because she suddenly hissed, "I know you're in there." I didn't say a word. She jiggled the handle harder. "This isn't over," she whispered. "You don't deserve it." "I do." Sirens blared in the distance. Linda turned and bolted, running down the driveway like a thief caught in the act. But she wasn't fast enough. The cops got her. I watched from the window as they put her in the back of the squad car. She didn't even look at me. But I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. After Linda's arrest, I thought I'd finally get some peace, but I should have known better. 2 days later, I got a call from a lawyer. Linda was suing me for emotional distress and wrongful withholding of inheritance. I nearly dropped my phone. Was this real life? "She claims you manipulated your grandfather into changing his will," the lawyer explained. "She's demanding half of the estate." I couldn't believe it. Linda had already drained my grandfather's accounts. She had already tried to break into my house. And now? Now she wanted to play the victim? The case moved to court fast, too fast. I barely had time to prepare. Linda walked into the courtroom looking like an angel, wearing a conservative dress, her hair pulled back, but her eyes still had that same calculating glint. She took the stand and put on the performance of a lifetime. "My father loved all his children," she said, dabbing at fake tears. "He would never have left everything to just one person. I don't know what lies were told to manipulate him in his last days, but I know this isn't what he wanted." I clenched my fists under the table. Then she turned to the judge, her voice shaking. "Your Honor, I was his only daughter. I took care of him. I handled his finances because he trusted me. But my nephew, he tricked him, and now he's trying to steal everything. Lies, every single word." But then, her lawyer dropped something unexpected. A week before his passing, my client's father transferred a large sum of money into an unknown account, he said, sliding a document across the table. "This proves that he was still entrusting my client with his assets." My blood ran cold. "What?" The judge frowned and examined the document. The amount was huge, almost a third of the estate. For a second, doubt crept in. Had my grandfather actually left something to her? Had I missed something? But then my lawyer stood up. "This account," he said calmly, "was set up as a decoy." He handed over another document. The courtroom fell silent. It was a bank statement. The money Linda was talking about had been moved, but not to her. It had been redirected to a trust fund. For a child. A secret child. Linda jumped out of her seat. "What? That's a lie. My father didn't have another kid." The lawyer ignored her and kept talking. "The trust is in the name of a 10-year-old boy. His mother was someone your father was involved with years ago." I froze. My grandfather had another son. Linda lost it. "This is a scam, a setup. That money is mine." The judge slammed the gavel. "Enough." The lawyer continued. "A DNA test confirmed that the boy is his biological son. He is legally entitled to part of the estate." Linda started shaking, her face red with anger. Then she snapped. "You're lying. I took care of him. I was his only daughter. That money was supposed to be mine." The judge gave her a sharp look. "Miss Linda, are you admitting that you knowingly took your father's money before he passed?" Silence. And then Linda's eyes widened. She had just confessed. The courtroom exploded in gasps. Her lawyer put his head in his hands. After court, I couldn't stop thinking about everything, the money, the trust, and the brother I never knew I had. I needed time to process it all. But time wasn't what I got. At 2 a.m., my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Hello?" At first, nothing, just breathing. Then, a small, scared voice. "Is this my brother?" My heart clenched. Who is this? I whispered. My name is Richard. My mom told me to call you, she said. She said I should tell you that we're scared. I sat up, fully awake now. Scared of what? Richard hesitated. Then he whispered. A lady came to our house tonight. She was banging on the door. She was screaming. I didn't need to ask who it was. I already knew. Linda. And I had a feeling this was far from over. Richard's words wouldn't leave my head. A lady came to our house tonight. She was banging on the door. She was screaming. Linda had found them. I grabbed my keys and ran to my car. Mark, my best friend, insisted on coming with me. I didn't argue. Richard and his mom, Angela, lived in a quiet neighborhood on the other side of town. By the time we got there, the street was dark and still. But the damage was already done. The front door was dented. The security camera was broken. Angela stood at the door, looking terrified. Richard clung to her, his eyes full of fear. She tried to break in, Angela whispered. She was screaming about the money, about you. She said if she couldn't have it, she'd make sure no one did. A cold chill ran through me. Where is she now? Angela swallowed hard. She left when I said I was calling the police. I turned away, gripping my head. Linda was falling apart, and she was getting dangerous. Angela hesitated. She said something else. I looked back. What? She said there's more to this, that you don't know the full story. A chill ran down my spine. What does that mean? Angela shook her head. I don't know, but she kept saying your grandfather lied to you. I barely slept that night. I knew Linda wasn't done, and I was right. The next morning, my phone buzzed, unknown number. I almost ignored it, then a text popped up. Check your grandfather's old desk, bottom drawer, you need to know the truth. No name, but I knew who it was, Linda. I didn't trust her, but something in my gut told me I had to look. So I did. I drove to my grandfather's old house, now legally mine, and went straight to his study. The bottom drawer was locked, but I found the key in his old cigar box. Inside was a thick envelope. My hand shook as I pulled it out and ripped it open. And when I read the letter inside, my heart stopped. The letter was old, but the words were clear. By the time you read this, I hope you'll understand why I did what I did. You deserve the truth, even if it hurts. Linda is not your aunt. I froze. She is your mother. The letter slipped from my fingers. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. My mother? No, that couldn't be right. I had been told my mother died when I was a baby. My whole life, I believed that. I forced myself to keep reading. She was young, too young. She wasn't ready to be a mother. She made mistakes. I tried to guide her, but she resented me for it. She ran wild, got into trouble, and left you behind. She didn't want to be a mother, so I raised you as my own. My chest tightened. I told everyone she was your aunt to protect you. I didn't want you growing up feeling abandoned, but she knew the truth, and that's why she hates you. I couldn't breathe. Linda was my mother. And she hated me because I was proof of everything she had thrown away. I thought back to her anger, her bitterness, her obsession with the inheritance. She didn't just see me as a nephew taking what was hers. She saw me as the child she gave up. I don't remember driving to Linda's house. I don't remember knocking on her door. But I remember the look on her face when she opened it. You read it, she whispered. I held up the letter. Why? She let out a shaky breath, rubbing her arms. I never wanted you to know. That much is obvious, I said coldly. But why? Why break into Angela's house? Why push this so far? Her face twisted. Because it wasn't fair. He gave you everything. He forgave you. But he never forgave me. I shook my head. Forgave me? For what? Her voice cracked. For existing. For the first time, I saw something in her eyes other than hate. Pain, guilt, regret. She took a deep breath. I was 17 when I had you. I was reckless. I wanted freedom, and when I left, I thought I had it. But he never let me forget. Every time I came back, he looked at me like I was a failure. But he looked at you like you were perfect, like you were his second chance. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. So what? You wanted to punish me for that? I asked. Linda let out a harsh laugh. You got everything, his name, his approval, his love, and now, his money. What do I have? I swallowed. You had a choice. She frowned. I stepped closer. You could have come back. You could have tried to be my mother, but instead, you spent your whole life trying to take what wasn't yours, and when you couldn't, you tried to destroy it. Her jaw tightened. You think it's that simple? I think it's that selfish. Silence. Then, she let out a dry, bitter laugh. You sound just like him. The lawsuit was dropped. Linda disappeared for a while. I heard she tried to get money from distant relatives, but no one wanted to help her. The trust fund for Richard stayed safe. I met him a few weeks later, and we slowly started building a real bond, like brothers. As for me, I kept my grandfather's letter. Sometimes, I reread it, to remind myself that the past doesn't control me. But Linda, she's still out there, waiting. And I know, one day, she'll be back. People like her never let go. But this time, I'll be ready.